that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 328th edition of Energy Week.
I think that's what it is.
That's what it is. We are recording this in the select board room because BCTV is doing one of its, what do they call them for children?
Oh, they have a class.
Yeah, they have a class.
A series of classes for
summer
the kids.
camp or something
yeah,
like that.
It's good.
And they have taken over the studio, and they're all very excited to do their thing.
They're running all over this building.
Oh, today is the 25th of July. I have to do what I didn't do last week and make another appeal for money. Energy Week has to come up with its minuscule share of the amount of money that's needed to keep BCTV alive, and that amount is $480. And so far, we have come up with $240.
So we're halfway there.
We're halfway there.
Well, that's encouraging.
And actually, if you think about it, $480
over the course of a year.
Over the course of years is $10 per program. Yeah. Actually, a little less than $10 per program. So, you know, at this point, if we want to fill out the rest, it's going to be $5 a week. But even so, I know you don't have $5 a week, and I don't have $5 a week. We're both barely surviving. So anyway. If you want to help out with that, you go to BrattleBoroTV.org. I think it's down at the bottom of the screen. It's a thing that says something about support local broadcasting. If you pay with a credit card or PayPal is best. There's a point after you put in the amount of money that you want to donate. There's a little bit below that on the screen is a box where you can fill in instructions, and what you do is you say that the donation is for Energy Week, and that is tax deductible. You can make a donation to my blog also, but that's not tax deductible, and the blog frankly doesn't need the money as much as Energy Week, which gets us to the blog. Every day I keep the blog. I go out and look. I spend like 4.5 hours a day doing this every day, and I find whatever news I can about energy and climate change, the items that I think are interesting, usually new. Sometimes they are repeats of the same news event, but said from a different point of view. And I put together 10 to 15 of these. A link to the original of each, and put those up at my blog. Many of them have photographs. Sometimes I put those in, even artwork sometimes. And Tom and I do about 20, 21, 22 sometimes articles a week here out of the blog.
It's about 3 a day.
About 3 for each day, yeah. So we're starting a week ago today, which means since today is the 25th of July, we're starting on the 18th of July. And we are starting with an item from Renewable Energy magazine, and we have a picture.
Son of a gun, we do really have a picture.
Tom and I usually have a monitor.
We can usually see what's going on here.
We can see what's going on. Today there's no monitors, so if you see us turning around and that thing there is a water-operated generator. And when the water flows, these little things twist around, make power.
Oh yeah. So it's upside down.
I believe it's upside down. It might be that the whole thing sinks.
That thing goes down. Yeah.
Yeah, it might sink and sit on the floor of the river, but I don't know.
It looks like a pretty practical thing to put in rivers all over America.
Absolutely. What do you got for a title for this?
I don't know. My computer went to sleep.
Oh no. Here.
Here we go.
Just a click.
We're working out of the select board room here, and everything is confusing.
Everything is confusing. It's
well, we'll try to deal with it.
We'll try to deal with it. It's about a third as complicated as.
Well, what you're looking at there is called the RivGen system.
Yeah.
And the article says Alaskan Village and a Maine company and Alaska governor launch a sustainable river energy project.
I'm gonna make a stab at pronouncing this name of the village, which I'm certain will be wrong, but I'm sure they would forgive me up there. The Igiugig Village Council. Igiugig is what.
That's what I would have said. So you.
Igiugig. Igiugig Village Council and Maine-based ORPC.
Which is the Ocean Renewable Power Company, by the way.
Okay, I'm glad you got that because I looked and I couldn't find it. Have celebrated the launch of ORPC's commercial RivGen power system, a unique, sustainable solution now available to remote river communities in Alaska and worldwide.
We could put these things in the Connecticut River right here.
It's quite possible that we could. We'd have to have enough flow, and I think we may be too close to the Vernon Dam to really turn those turbine blades over. But certainly, I'm sure there are places in the Connecticut River.
A zillion places.
Yeah.
And like the old flood control dams that are up and down the Connecticut River.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Every one of those things could support something like this.
Yeah, these things. What has happened here is Igiugig has been historically running on diesel fuel.
Yeah.
And that
Which is
diesel fuel
expensive
has to get there somehow. In some places, the diesel fuel comes in on airplanes.
Wow.
This is not easy. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to find ways to power the little villages all through Alaska that don't involve diesel fuel. And
It's not a big system, but they don't need a big system.
No, they need a.
I'll read a little bit about it. The device is going to be, this particular device will be deployed in the Kvitsiak River.
Oh, I should have guessed that.
The 40 kilowatt system, so it's not very big, will provide up to half of the community's annual electricity.
There you go.
Okay, plans are underway for installation of a second RivGen device.
I was going to say, are they
in
going to do it?
In conjunction with the smart microgrid electronics and energy storage.
Yeah.
And just an off the whatever. The Kvitsiak River is the home of the greatest sockeye salmon run on Earth.
Oh man.
So this is important to all of us, really.
Yes, it is. Okay, we should move on from there.
Yeah, there's a quick takeaway here. That Igiugig, if that's how you say it, is a model for what can happen throughout Alaska and Canada and other similar small communities.
Absolutely.
Everywhere.
Anywhere you've got a river. And that includes like Polynesian islands where you've got a river.
Where you got a river.
You know, it might be that this could be used on Hawaii. They have not huge
Looks
rivers.
like a catamaran.
It is a catamaran.
Well, it is.
Right there.
Sort of.
Okay, our next item is from Colorado Public Radio.
It is that. Rural electricity provider announces early coal plant closure and a focus on renewables.
Now, we've been talking about these guys for
Absolutely,
over a year.
Absolutely, and it's coming.
It's coming.
It's happening.
Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association, which is a co-op of co-ops.
Co-op of co-ops, yeah.
Announced plans to develop an aggressive energy plan to incorporate more wind and solar. The power provider currently relies on renewable energy for 30% of its power supply. These guys have had co-ops drop out and have actually paid them millions and millions of dollars.
We've talked about that.
To get out of their contracts because they want renewable energy. And Tri-State's been giving them coal.
Yeah. Well, Tri-State's invested in coal, but you got to realize that under today's conditions, investments in coal are not a good investment.
Stranded assets.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the details of the plan will be hammered out over the next 6 months, big deal, and will likely include more solar, wind, and hydropower, as we have been saying.
Yeah.
Tri-State plans to retire a coal-fired power plant originally scheduled for 2022 by the end of 2020. And Unit 1 of 3 coal plants in Colorado will be retired before the end of 2025. So they're getting on this.
They're getting on it.
And it's economics.
Well, it's economics and it's what people want. And a lot of people want it because they're worried about climate change, but there are a lot of people who are worried about just health. Okay,
Yeah.
Move on?
We shall move on. We got another picture coming up.
We do, and this is...
and there it is.
There it is. This is an item from Clean Technica.
Now, it happens to be a Proterra bus.
Proterra is one of a couple of bus companies manufacturing buses in the United States. BYD is making them.
Yep.
And there's a third one, I forget the name offhand, but Proterra is a big one. I've been writing about and reading about Proterra. I had articles from Green Energy Times about them several years ago.
And this is a battery-powered bus. I mean, if you go to places like Brooklyn and Boston, you see electric buses that operate off of trolley wires.
Right. These are battery operated.
This can go wherever they can plug it in.
Yeah.
Rock Hill, South Carolina installs a new, free-to-ride, fully electric transit bus system.
Now, this is the thing that's cool about this.
This is very nice.
The city of Rock Hill, South Carolina. What's the matter? We're in the select board room. Maybe we should come back sometime and tell these people about it. The city of Rock Hill, South Carolina has added transit bus service for its residents that is the manifestation of the future of transit in two key areas. First, the new bus fleet is fully electric from day one. Second, and perhaps more important, the new buses are free.
Well, for what it's worth, Rock Hill is a university town in northwestern South Carolina.
Yeah.
It's not far from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
It's up that way. And the first bus arrived in March, and it's serving the downtown area. And there's another bus that went into service on July 1st. So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
They're putting their money, yeah. And it reminds me of that story we had a couple of weeks ago about the taxi service or the
with the signs on the taxi cabs.
Yeah, and the service is free. People can ride these things for free. They're an Uber-like.
I like that idea.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Okay.
This one's interesting.
Okay.
Car parts this is Friday, July 19th.
Yeah, we're up to Friday already. July 19th.
Time flies.
And by the way, I didn't mention it at the beginning, but if you want to read these things, what you do is you go to the blog, geoharvey.com, pay attention to the date. We're going to try to keep you apprised of the date that we're reading, and you just click on that day on the calendar, and it'll take you to usually 15, almost never more than that, articles that you can look through to find these. And this is from BBC. So what is it again?
Car parts from weeds, the future of green motoring.
Cars are responsible for a lot of carbon emissions that contribute to global warming, but their manufacture can emit as much CO2 as all the fuel they burn. Could plastics made from weeds, modular designs, and other innovations help the motor industry reduce its carbon footprint?
This is an interesting article, and in addition to weeds, it's talking about modular designs.
Modular designs, all kinds of different things.
We've talked about that already, and it's coming.
But it's distressing when you think about this. If you buy a Tesla or any other battery-powered car, and you power it entirely from solar power, which some people do because they do this at home, you're still going to have a carbon footprint out of that car that's going to be half as big as the carbon footprint out of some ordinary gas-powered vehicle.
True.
So the thing to do with those cars is keep them going as long as you possibly can.
Well, that's what they talk about when they talk about modular designs.
Yeah.
One option or one alternative is every couple of years you bring your car back in and they update it.
Well, that's one way.
Instead of getting a new car every 4 years.
My understanding is you cannot buy a 100% new car from Mercedes.
You can't?
No.
Why?
They reuse parts. When cars are retired, they strip them
and use the parts
and
over?
they use the parts
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Refurbished parts, and so you'll have refurbished parts in your Mercedes.
Well, as I mentioned, it's a long and interesting article. It's worth reading. Car dashboards and interior components could soon be made from bioplastics. That's the first part of the article.
Yep.
Ford and other manufacturers presently use carpets made from recycled plastic bottles.
Yeah,
And
but bioplastics...
They mentioned how many bottles that Ford recycles.
I'll bet they do. One thing about recycled plastics is they generally don't biodegrade, but the bioplastics do.
Yeah.
So you could take something, bioplastic and compost it. Okay.
Or use it over as they're doing here. Well, there's a quick takeaway here.
Okay.
What if updating your car, I just referred to this, didn't mean buying an entirely new one, but taking it back to the manufacturer for a serious refit?
Well, if your frame is still good, why do you get a new frame? You do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It comes back and gets refreshed maybe on a 4-year cycle. It ain't going to happen, I don't think, but it's an interesting concept.
Something is going to happen, Tom. You can bet on that, and
it's going to change what's going on now.
We have to change. Okay, we've got an item from Live Cycle Science, and I'm going to apologize for this picture. I think it's probably, it reminds me of bad greeting cards or
She
something.
loves me, she loves me not.
Something like that. Actually, I picked that. It came from Wikimedia Commons because I wanted a picture that showed weeds.
Oh, okay. Well, there's dandelions there. You can say they're weeds.
Dandelions are
There's a bunch of them, too.
they are potentially so useful.
Yeah.
You can make coffee out of the roots. You can.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And truth is that if you have a field which is filled with nothing but dandelions, certain times of the year it's stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what do you got for a title?
Last month was the hottest June on Earth ever recorded.
If you thought, actually, you know what? That weeds picture was supposed to go with the previous.
Was it really?
I got it out of sequence here. Sorry about that. It was supposed to go with the idea of recycling, of using weeds to make plastic.
Aha, yep.
This is from Live Science. Okay, if you thought last month was really, really hot, you were right. June 2019 was the hottest June on record for the globe. The sizzling average land and sea temperatures of June 2019 was 1.71 degrees Fahrenheit above the global average temperature, making June of 2019 the hottest June in 140 years. And you know what? July is off to doing the same thing.
Not here, but
Well,
overall, yeah.
we're in the second heat wave in a couple of weeks in Europe right now.
Yeah, well,
It's
they
bad.
mentioned that in the articles.
Yeah.
9 of the 10 hottest Junes have occurred since 2010. And they mentioned places, Alaska, Hawaii.
Is this a trend? Nah, probably not. I think it's Chinese hoax.
Alaska, Hawaii, the Gulf states, Austria, Germany, Hungary, and Switzerland have all set records.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting map of the climate anomalies, which I think we've shown on this show.
Yeah, probably. Okay, our next item is from PBS NewsHour.
It is that. New York climate law aims to drive dramatic changes over the next 30 years.
A bill signed into law by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo sets the nation's most aggressive targets for reducing carbon emissions. The law is intended to drive dramatic changes over the next 30 years. It calls for transitions in electricity, heating, and transportation.
Well, these are the things, some of the things they're mentioning. Solar panels on every roof. Parking meters that double as car chargers.
Yeah.
Now, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Wind turbines towering above farm fields and ocean waves.
Yeah.
That's happening now.
Yeah.
Transportation and building heating systems that run on clean electricity rather than oil and gas. And this is a quote from Cuomo. The environment and climate change are the most critically important policy priorities we face.
Yes.
This is the governor of New York saying that.
Yes. Okay, we're up to Saturday, July
Let's see,
20th.
was there any more about that? Well, we can pass on.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I've got a car. I got something to say, but it isn't that important.
Okay. We have a picture of an Ørsted turbine in the UK,
Yeah, we do.
and
And that's not Mr. Ørsted there.
what do you have for a title on this?
Well, we're back. We're still in New York.
Yeah, and this
New
is
York completes nation's largest renewable energy procurement.
This is from Energy Manager today. New York has completed the single largest renewable energy procurement in the United States in any U.S. state's history. The state has awarded 2 offshore wind products that total nearly 1.7 gigawatts. The winning bids were Sunrise Wind for 880 megawatts and Equinor for 816. Now I want you to remember, 1.7 gigawatts
That's
is
a lot.
the biggest procurement of any state in the history of the United States.
Significant amount.
1.7. That
all
number
right.
we'll get back to in a
We're
few
coming
minutes.
back to that number. huh?
Yeah, we are.
Well, since March of 2018, New York has awarded nearly 5 gigawatts of new large-scale renewable energy contracts.
Yep.
Okay, so they're in the
They're
game.
moving along, yeah.
Among Cuomo's goal is reaching 9 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2035. Now, there's none in New York now.
No offshore wind.
No offshore
Yeah,
wind. Yep.
Right.
In April, Cuomo added $280 million for energy storage projects. And I think we're going to talk about some renewables that are going into Staten Island. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if that something just came across my television somewhere else.
Yeah, they're putting in renewables all over the state, And I don't remember about Staten
Well,
Island.
it could have come from somewhere else, but there's a big project coming on.
Yep.
And it's good because Staten Island, where the way it's situated, that's where the sea hits New York City.
Right,
You know, so putting in something there makes a lot of sense.
right. Okay, our next item, we're still on Saturday, July 20th, is from Politico.
Trump's USDA buried sweeping climate change response plan. Well, I'll say that again. Trump's U.S. Department of Agriculture buried a sweeping climate change response plan. They hit it.
They did. The Agriculture Department quashed the release of a sweeping plan on how farmers could respond and adapt to climate change that was finalized in the early days of the Trump administration, according to a USDA employee with knowledge of the decision. Now, the plan apparently is quite real. This isn't
They didn't
something some
take
guy made
the
up.
plan out of. They just stopped talking about it.
They stopped
didn't.
talking
They didn't.
about it. They didn't
cancel
distribute
the
it.
plan. Right.
They didn't distribute it. So the problem is the farmers have got to make decisions, and the U.S. government has got a department, huge department, which is supposed to be telling them what
Supposed to help
decisions
them. Yeah.
to make, and
they've
they
gagged.
have prevented them from
Yeah,
communicating.
that's exactly what's going on.
And, you know, this is like, okay, Southern Vermont, maple syrup. Well, we've been having year after year after year after year of progressively worse maple syrup production
Because of the weather.
because of the weather. A friend of mine told me the other day that the maple syrup people around here this year started tapping their trees in January.
Wow.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so the length of the winter is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. The productive
maple
winter.
syrup's going to be a thing of the past.
It's
going to
getting
be
to be,
Canadian
yeah.
maple syrup.
And so, if you want, you know, high quality, light grade maple syrup,
Get it now.
well, it comes from that January run, or a run that was in January this year. This is stuff that should have been happening in April, or March. Instead of having a 3 or 4 or 5 month winter break for the maple trees, we're getting down to weeks here.
Well, the colds aren't happening.
Right, but what the USDA should be doing about this is coming out and saying, "Hey, farmers, you can grow pawpaws."
Which you never could.
We've got pawpaws being, coming up as volunteers on Elliott Street.
But that never used to happen.
Pawpaws don't grow natively any closer than Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Now they're growing as volunteers in Vermont.
Yeah.
Same thing with peach trees. We've got peach tree volunteers. In fact, we've got one that is producing a lot of peaches right on Elliott
Right on your
Street.
yard.
That's right.
How about
So, but the point is, the agriculture department should be telling people about these things and other things related to them, and they're being gagged because they can't talk about climate change.
Well, we got another picture coming up.
We do indeed.
And these guys are Volkswagen EVs.
Yep.
And if you look at the one on the left, it looks an awful lot like an early microbus, doesn't it? I had several microbuy.
I think these guys in Germany love these things.
Well, I had several microbuy.
Yeah.
And they were fun, you know.
Yeah.
It was you could take your house with you.
Yeah.
I
A
used
lot
to
of
do
people-
that. I'd take it
lot of
on a
people do.
weekend. I just hop in the car. I had no plans. I just drove it till I got tired of driving it, went to
Sound like a
sleep,
hippie.
explored the Adirondacks, explored the northern
There
Green
used to be
Mountains.
hippies. They were
Huh?
real. There were real hippies in this country.
Well, I
Once
wasn't a
upon
hippie then. But,
I bet people would have called you. Some people would have. Called
some people would have called me a hippie.
you. Okay.
Well,
What we're
European-
talking about here is from Clean Technica.
It is that. European Car Market News. It's from the European Car. That's the publication.
Yeah.
Triple the number of models and more battery factories.
Analysis by IHS Markit found that European car makers plan to triple the number of models with plugs by the end of 2021. Just from 60 today to 210. That's not triple, that's 3.5. Just 18 months from now.
Well, I'll finish up.
Europe will also see rapid growth in the capacity of battery factories.
Well, they call them models with plugs for a reason.
Yeah. Some are plug-in hybrids.
About almost half of them are battery electric, and the other ones are plug-in hybrids.
Yeah, and so you can have it either way. My last car was a Prius, and I really liked that car.
Uh-huh.
That was a great car. But the idea of having a plug-in, I think, is very much better. The battery in that thing, in my 2001 Prius, you were not supposed to drive on just the battery alone
Ever.
at all.
Ever, yeah.
Now the car would do it, but it would know when the engine had to come on. And if that engine was not going to come on, you were supposed to stop right there. And the only time I ever drove that car when the engine wouldn't come on, I had an engine failure. I don't remember why, but I had an engine failure, and I was about 150 yards from a parking lot, so I took it in there to get it off the road. But nevertheless, they're talking about a huge increase in electric models in Europe. And
well, let me touch base on that, because I got something from the article.
Okay.
22% of the vehicles produced and sold in the EU could have a plug by 2025. Okay, that's not too far away.
No.
This would make it possible for car makers to easily meet the carbon dioxide emissions goal required by EU regulations
Which
in
tells
2025.
tells me that the goal is probably not sufficiently strict.
Well, the continent will also need a larger supply of batteries to power all these cars.
Yes.
And getting there will require the construction of up to 25 large battery factories.
Right.
We've talked about some of this, but not so many, I don't think.
Right. We are up to Sunday, July 21st, and there is an article here from Foreign Policy.
And it's an interview.
Yep.
And it is, well, the title is a question mark. Can supercharged plants solve the climate crisis? And they're talking about plants that grow in the ground, not factories.
That's right. The fight against climate change may seem hopeless, but humanity has a simple but powerful ally in plain sight: plants. At least that's the belief of the botanist Joanne Corey and her team of scientists at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in San Diego. They are modifying plants. This is genetic.
Yeah, they're genetically engineering plants
to absorb more CO2. Now, next week,
yeah.
I think it's going to be the first item on the show is going to be that thing that you sent me yesterday.
The industrial hemp.
Industrial hemp, yeah.
Oh, I just mentioned this. What's her name? Carolyn Brown, I think it is. She's generally an economic writer.
Yeah.
But she wrote an article about the use of industrial hemp.
Good article.
It's well thought out. Well, she's a bright lady. She's pretty smart.
Yeah. So there's this picture of a hemp plant, which of course looks like it's just
Looks like marijuana.
marijuana. And this woman is writing a very responsible sounding.
Well, as she mentions in the article, hemp and cannabis, hemp and pot, are the same species.
Yeah.
But they're very different. Okay, the industrial hemp is a very different form of the plant. And she gives an example of, you can go into the grocery store and buy different kinds of corn. They're all corn.
They're all corn.
But they're all different.
They're all different. Yep. Okay. Should we go on?
Well, did you read that one? The fight against climate change?
Yes, I did.
They are okay, well, she's talking about creating ideal plants.
Yes.
And there's a quote from the article. Plants have evolved over the last 500 million years to suck up carbon dioxide. They're really good at it. We decided to take advantage of that to come up with a cost-effective and efficient way of actually pulling carbon dioxide down from the atmosphere and sequestering it into the soil where it should be.
Yeah.
She makes a good point.
Yep. Okay, we've got a picture of trees in Chicago.
Me too.
And that particular picture was taken from I think this is actually a botanical garden, but it's on
Looks like a nice place.
Yeah, it's part of the University of Chicago. And my daughter got her master's degree at the University of Chicago. Okay,
Well,
this is from CNN.
U.S. cities are losing 36 million trees a year. Here's why it matters and how you can stop it.
Trees can lower summer daytime temperatures by as much as 10 degrees Fahrenheit, according to a recent study from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. But tree cover in U.S. cities is shrinking by 36 million trees a year, according to the U.S. Forest Service. And what the article is doing is it's explaining not just why that's important, which I read here, but also what people can do.
The article mentions 10 benefits that trees provide.
Yeah.
If we got 10 hours, I'll talk about it. I won't talk about it, I'll just mention them, because they do make sense.
Yeah.
Heat reduction.
Yes.
Okay, air pollution reduction.
Yes.
Energy emissions reduction.
Yes.
Water quality improvement. Flooding reduction. Noise reduction, protection from UVs, improves aesthetics, improved human health, and wildlife habitat.
But don't do it because it's dangerous. Trees are dangerous things.
And it closes with a good injunction: volunteer or donate to tree planting and research organizations.
And I hope nobody out there thinks that I actually think the trees are dangerous.
But
there's gonna be,
as we've mentioned here, probably the best way to remove carbon dioxide from the air is by planting trees.
Yes.
Or, as Carol Brown said, planting industrial hemp.
She had some pretty good
She makes a good point.
Absolutely, she makes a bunch of good points.
Basically, because you can have several seasons a year.
Yeah,
it grows fast, and it doesn't need a lot of fertilizer.
Yeah, and
it's a weed.
It makes the ground better for
improves
other
the ground,
plants, so it can be part of a cycle. It grows 13 feet tall in 1 year. You know, it's taking down that carbon dioxide. Okay, we are now at Monday, July 22nd.
We got still more from Sunday.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Oh, we do. Yes.
Speakers at DCD, San Francisco, that's the Data Center Dynamics Conference,
Yeah.
ask why won't utility companies give us the renewable energy we want? There's a simple answer to that.
Yes, there's a simple answer. It has to do with money. At this year's Data Center Dynamics Conference in San Francisco, speaker after speaker took to the stage to lament how utility companies refuse to provide even the largest corporations with the renewable energy they want.
Well, the way she says it in the article is utility companies are accustomed to having things pretty much their own way.
Yeah.
Their attitude is, quote, it's our electricity, we will decide how it's made and how it's distributed and how much you will pay for it. However, the tech industry is fighting back. They are building everywhere these big data centers that they need to run.
Yeah, and a big data center can use as much electricity as
a small town.
A large town.
A large town, yeah.
Well, what's large? Brattleboro has about 12,000 people. A data center could take as much as electricity as that, or even more.
Well, renewable energy power purchase agreements mean stable, long-term electricity costs.
Yep.
So, it makes a certain amount of economic sense.
It does. And the companies that are providing electricity have got investments in things like natural gas and coal. And
absolutely. Well, they have for generations.
Absolutely. So they know how to run a grid that's being done that way. And unfortunately for them right now, they're running into a situation where they are no longer competitive.
The times they are changing.
They are indeed. That thing that happened in Los Angeles is,
Which thing was this?
We reported it last week. I think it was 1.997 cents per kilowatt hour for solar,
right.
And 1.3 for battery. How is anybody going to compete with that using fossil fuels?
In 5 years, they're going to make that a joke.
Yeah. Well, I think that we're on the cusp of a situation where we're going to see a domino effect going on in the natural gas market, and it's starting now. And this is important for Vermont because. Is it Enbridge is trying to bring a natural gas line to Vermont?
And I think they've given up on it. No, that was the one from the south. They're working on one
from the north, and they're pushing
hard
power to take this. And
well, didn't they just buy into Green Mountain Power?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
but they should, if they have any brains, and I'm not convinced they do, they would sit there and say to themselves, "Is this really going to be usable 4 years from now? 5 years?"
That's a very good question to ask. It really is. That's valid.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Monday, July 22nd.
Oh, thank you.
We got a picture of NextEra Energy coming up.
Yep,
that's a real solar farm.
Yes, and a real sun.
And real chemtrails.
Real contrails, thank you. I know something about chemtrails, and you cannot see chemtrails.
Oh, okay.
No, you cannot.
Okay.
I've actually manufactured the stuff that the planes are dropping, the silver iodate that the planes are dropping and so forth. The amount that they drop is so small.
You can't see it.
You cannot see it from the ground, and they don't drop it in a blue sky because there's no clouds.
Well, that makes sense.
So it's a tiny amount going in.
If that's what they're dropping.
That's what they're dropping, and people see stuff in the sky above Vermont and think that somebody's dropping this stuff on us. Well, that's 35,000 feet up. By the time it hits the ground, it's going to be halfway to Britain.
Right. You're right there.
So,
Well, the article says that NextEra Energy predicts a 50% renewable energy in the U.S. by 2030. Coming up, guys.
Yeah. In a meeting with investors in May, NextEra Energy used data from IHS Markit, we've seen that name before, projecting that the U.S. would get 25% of its electricity from renewable resources by 2030. For the June meeting, it used data from NREL projecting 50%. Now, let me explain this, because what this means is NextEra Energy was using market data that was available
Right.
in May, and in June they switched the source, and the result was that their expectation doubled.
Very.
This is,
As it says here, the difference is startling.
the difference is startling.
And proof of how quickly things are changing in the utility industry.
There was it this article. I think it was this article. They talked about the bad projections from the Energy Information Administration.
Yep.
They
So
said
they were like a year behind the times.
no, worse than that. In 2009, they were saying we'd have 1 gigawatt of solar power in the United States within 10 years. So that would be now. In 2014, they said it would be 7 gigawatts.
Yeah.
Now they're saying, well, we've hit it, and it's 31. They're just way, way off. And
Part of that is politics.
I don't know, Tom.
Some of it's just plain stupidity.
No, I don't think it's either, really. I think they've got their way of doing things, and they've actually admitted that they're wrong. But they admitted that less than 5 years ago. They started to look at their stuff and saying, we've got to do better than this. And they have to, the projections have to take into account certain things. One of them is the declining price of energy. And, we've got some.
This NextEra is nothing to sneeze at.
No.
They produce more electricity from the wind and sun than any other company on the planet.
Yeah.
So they're big in this.
Yeah.
The cost of electricity produced from renewables, which have no fuel expenses,
Yes.
which we mentioned,
Yes.
frees up capital to invest elsewhere while keeping customers' bills low.
Yeah.
Well, you can't beat that combination.
No, you can't. And as a matter of fact, it's not just fuel. If you can, how much maintenance is done on a solar farm?
Well, you got to
Photovoltaics.
keep those sheep away from it.
You got
Then the
to.
goats, they want to climb.
You don't want the goats in there. You have to keep the grass down, and you can rent the land out to farmers and make an income out of it for that. So
That's what they're doing on Western Avenue.
yeah,
There's
that's
sheep
right.
there now.
There's sheep under the solar panels. You
The
have
sheep
to,
are happy, and
in
the solar
certain-
panels are happy.
In certain environments, you have to clean the solar
Yeah.
panels. But
So it's a job.
compare that to the maintenance that has to be done at a gas-powered power plant.
You do more than just keep it clean. I'll tell
Well,
you
I mean,
that.
you're talking about maintaining something that looks like a jet engine in some cases.
Yeah,
This
really.
is,
Absolutely.
We're going to do our 200-hour check now. Okay. All right. That was NextEra. We have an item here from Renew Economy, and we're starting to get in this part of the show into some
We've
new
touched base on
stunning
this
stuff.
already.
What do you got for title?
Electricity prices across the grid fall to zero. This is in Australia now.
Yeah.
As renewables reach a 44% share.
You don't get to see this very often. They will see this more often. For one 5-minute dispatch period, all of the state-powered grids in Australia carried electricity priced at 0 or below.
So that means they're paying you to take electricity.
That's right. These grids cover Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, and South Australia. And
That's almost the whole country.
well, no, Western Australia is
The big states.
it's like half the state, half the country, almost. And Northern Territory is not in this too. And the reason is because neither of them has an integrated power grid.
Is that so?
Their population
They're so big. Yeah,
so big.
So sparsely
Northern
populated.
Territories, and we'll get into this again. Northern Territories is twice the size of Texas, but its population is about 40% of the population of Vermont.
Okay.
So that's why they don't. But the rest of these, this is an area which is not quite half the size of the United States.
Yep.
And for that whole area, the price of electricity on the spot market went to 0 or below simultaneously. And the reason was because the renewables were cranking it out.
Well, this is what they said in the article. Good breezes
Yep,
combined with low demand.
yep,
Okay. Push the share of renewables to more than 43%.
yep. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, let's go.
We've got an item here
This
from...
is an interesting article. Interesting to me, anyhow.
Yeah, from Utility Magazine.
Australia-Singapore Powerlink project awarded major project status.
Okay, we were just talking about these states and territory in, Australia. This is
from
Territory,
Northern Australia.
the one I just mentioned. The government of Northern Territory, which represents 40% of the population size, a population the size of 40% of that of Vermont, has awarded major project status to Sun Cable's Australia-Singapore Powerlink. The proposed Australia-Singapore Powerlink is a $20 billion, 10-gigawatt solar farm and a storage facility of up to 30 gigawatt hours in Tennant Creek.
Well, what they failed to mention here, they're talking about the solar farm.
Yeah.
But they got 1,000 miles of high voltage DC undersea cables. I don't think that's ever been done.
This cable is going to be Darwin, which is the capital of Northern Territory, to Singapore.
Yeah.
A little bit over 2,000 miles.
Well, I said 1,000.
You said 1,000. You're talking about the underwater part.
Right.
I think they're going to stretch those cables across a significant part of Western Australia. But just think about this. What would happen if somebody came to Vermont and said, I've got a power problem, and I want to solve it here in the state. I want to spend $40 billion here in Vermont.
Yeah.
And by the way, this 30 gigawatt hour battery, the biggest battery in the world, we reported 2 years ago, was 130 megawatt hours. This is 30 gigawatt hours. This thing is
storage facility of up to 30 gigawatt hours. Yeah.
A solar farm of 10 gigawatts. This is more than 5 times, I think, bigger than the largest.
So this is a big project.
Unbelievable. And it's happening in a place where almost nobody lives.
Well, basically, they're connecting Asia to Australia.
Yeah, that's what they're
electrically.
doing. And that power line,
yeah.
What's it going by? It's going by Indonesia, which has huge reserves of fossil fuels.
Does it?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's why the Japanese attacked the Philippines during the Second World War. They wanted to get the oil, in Indonesia. Well, Indonesia also has coal.
Well, a little bit of takeaway. This is in the Tennant Creek region.
Yeah.
And it's got one of the highest solar irradiance resources on the planet.
Yeah.
They get a lot of sunlight there.
That's why they're talking about doing it there.
Exactly.
Okay, we're up to Tuesday, July 23rd.
And we've got a picture coming up.
We
here.
do. That is the Valdez Glacier.
Now that's a lake at the bottom of the glacier.
That's a lake at the bottom, and that glacier, you can see it's covered with dirt. The snow has been melting. That's very, very dirty snow, and those things in the lake, I think, are little blocks. They're probably
of dirt-covered snow that broke off.
And are floating in that lake, and then there's a stream coming out of it. What do you got for title? This is from CNN.
Well, the picture is the melting Valdez Glacier.
Yep.
And the article says, record high temperatures far exceed record lows, a trend of the climate crisis.
Yeah, this is something that people who deny the climate crisis keep saying, well, there was a record low in wherever last night. How could we have record lows if there's...
Well, it's happening 2 to 1.
Well,
it used to be about the same, and now it's 2 to 1.
It was about the same. Yeah. The highs and lows were hitting records were about the same. More than 400 places in the United States reached record-breaking temperatures last week. Over the same week, only 100 places saw record-breaking lows. The 4-to-1 ratio is partly due to a heat wave. A 2-to-1 ratio is more normal in the U.S. due to climate change. So it's not that climate change is bringing us record highs and no record lows. It's that what climate change is doing is it's changing that ratio.
Well, what it says here, and this makes sense, increasing the average temperature increases the number of extreme highs, while extreme cold happens less frequently.
Right.
Record high temperatures occurring twice as frequently as record lows directly reflects the climate crisis. If this ratio continues to grow over time, many temperatures we currently label as extreme may become nothing more than ordinary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, our next item is from Renew Economy.
We're back to South Australia.
We're back to,
South Australia has 10 gigawatts of wind. Hey, that's a lot. And solar in the pipeline as it heads to 100% renewables.
South Australia's conservative liberal government, we should explain that in Australia the word liberal means
conservative. Which has been opposed to renewables, really.
Yeah, the federal government has been opposed to renewables, and as a matter of fact, conservative liberals, the liberals in South Australia, were opposed to renewables until that big Hornsdale power reserve was put up, and they realized they are spending extra money in order to maintain old infrastructure.
Interesting.
Okay, the Liberal government has boasted that it has a 10 gigawatt has 10 gigawatt, I just bumped something and everything.
Of large-scale wind and solar projects.
Yeah, you got it.
In the development pipeline.
Moving the state toward an anticipated milestone of net 100% renewables by 2030.
South Australia currently sources more than half its electricity demand from renewables.
Yeah.
That's now.
Yeah.
Mostly wind, but a growing amount of large-scale and rooftop solar. Well, rooftop solar in Australia is taken off.
It's a big deal.
Okay, and most new projects include battery storage.
Yep.
Where at least 4 pumped hydro proposals, and that's just a different form of storage, really, are working their way through feasibility studies. This liberal, which is conservative, state government hopes to become a major exporter of renewable energy.
Okay.
And this has changed in a matter of, what, 2 years?
2 years. It's been a complete turnabout. And that is based on economics.
Money.
It's
money talks.
I did a little research on South Australia. It has a population of 1.66 million people. Now
that's twice what Vermont is. Not much more.
It's
than
about
that.
1/200th of the population of the United States.
Okay.
Okay, take that 10 gigawatt pipeline and multiply it by 200, and you'll get the amount of material, what would be in the pipeline in the United States if we had the same amount
ratio
in terms of on a per capita basis. It
Wow.
comes out to
Interesting to look at it that way.
2,000 gigawatts.
I can't count that high.
This is kind of stunning. It really is kind of stunning.
Yeah.
You know, it would be like having the state of Vermont with you know, as you said, it would be like 5 gigawatts in the state of Vermont, and 5 gigawatts of renewable energy is going to be like a gigawatt of nuclear. So this would be more than Vermont Yankee was producing. And Vermont Yankee, if it sold all of its power to Vermont, would have powered this state.
Yeah, would have. Just about. Just about.
What does the United States have? 200 gigawatts in the pipeline. Not 2,000, 200. So on a per capita basis, South Australia, which as you know is the wealth capital of the world, South Australia is doing 10 times as much as the United States is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. What do they know that we don't know?
Yeah.
Well, the oil companies located here.
What did the liberals in South Australia learn that the conservatives in the United States, who are basically the same thought patterns, don't know? I don't know. Anyway, we should probably...
You got a picture coming up here. Another
go
one.
on.
This is scary.
Look at all these people.
Those are all people there, people.
That's not
That
a
thing is
house,
huge.
by the way.
That's the nacelle.
That's the nacelle, and it looks like it's 3.5 stories tall.
Well, this is the world's largest turbine right now, as of now, by about 50%.
This is from Green Tech Media.
GE finishes its first nacelle for a 12-megawatt offshore wind turbine.
In a plant in Saint-Nazaire, France, and I can pronounce German, I can pronounce Welsh.
We'll leave it at that.
And I can even pronounce American, but French, I'm sorry, I'm a barbarian. I have never learned French. General Electric finished manufacturing the first nacelle for its new 12-megawatt offshore wind turbine known as the Haliade X. The company is pushing itself to establish itself as an offshore rival to Siemens Gamesa and MHI Vestas.
This is a pilot program for GE.
Yeah.
This is the first time they've made anything anywhere near, than anybody's made anything near this big.
Yes, that's right.
And it's got a 725-foot rotor, 350-foot blades, and it's about 800 foot high.
This is, and one of those things would power Brattleboro.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Well, it's heading to the Netherlands for testing.
Yep.
Okay, so they're going to put it up and measure things, and then they're going to start building these things. It leaves the Haliade X on track to begin commercial shipments by mid-2021. So
They're
if nothing
moving.
goes wrong, they're going to
Yeah.
be taking over the market.
Yep, that's right. Well, I don't know. You know, there's a lot. They have a lot of competition. Siemens Gamesa is a big company with.
Well, there are no turbines currently for sale that are larger than 10 megawatts.
Yeah.
Okay, and this one's 12.
Yep.
Okay, the Haliade X's larger rotor diameter will increase the capacity factor, so they're going to work more efficiently.
Yes. As they
For the
get
turbines, it result in higher energy production on a per turbine basis.
right, the offshore wind turbines off the UK, the big ones, have capacity factors that are approaching those of coal-burning power plants.
Do they really?
Well, they have some fairly
They get a
inefficient
lot of
coal-burning
wind there.
power plants, but they have a lot of wind, and the capacity factor is upwards of 50%. And the coal-burning
So it's
power
reliable
plants,
wind.
a 50% capacity factor doesn't mean that you're running 50% of the time and not running 50% of the time. Wind turbines typically, in a situation like that, run like 99% of the time.
But some of the time they're
But
not
almost
putting out much.
yeah, some of the time they're not putting out much. There's a lot of variation, and if you have them spread over a big enough area, which you do if you have a lot of different wind farms. I mean, the North Sea is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles across. You'll get wind from one, not so much from another.
Yeah.
So
Well, the takeaway here, and final thing from this article, is the Swedish utility Vattenfall, which we've been talking about,
Yes.
has plans to use these Haliade X's.
Yep,
Okay, so
there we are.
there we are. If this pilot project works, gee, he's going to make a lot of these things.
We are up to Wednesday, July 24th.
Already? Time
We've got-
flies when you're
yeah,
having fun, huh?
It does. We've got 3 items. And
That looks like a moon. No,
Hey.
it looks like the Earth.
it looks like the Earth.
Yeah, I blew that one.
It's the Western Hemisphere upside down. Right here is the west coast of South America.
Yes, it is. You can see it. Yep,
Yep,
the whole
and
thing's
that-
upside down.
and the South Pole is over this way.
Yep, the South Pole is in the north.
That's right. Okay. this is
12
from the-
years to save the planet. Nah? Make that 18 months. This is scary.
It is scary, but I've got a comment on that. BBC did this. Last year, the
BBC, right?
Yep. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reported that to keep the rise in global temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius this century, emissions of CO2 would have to be cut by 45% by 2030. But the decisive political steps to make that possible will have to happen in the next 18 months.
That's what this article's saying. It's a long, interesting article. It's worth reading.
Now, what this means is, Greta Thunberg says, I don't want you to be concerned, I want you to panic, because that's the situation that we're in now.
Well, it's hard to get that point across.
It is.
We've gotten to the point where more than half the people believe
Yeah.
in global warming.
We do not necessarily face a situation where if we don't get this done politically in 18 months, at which point Donald Trump might still be in office, even if he doesn't get reelected, we don't have to have big political movement all over the world in the next 18 months to stop climate change. We have to do it in the next 18 months if we're going to stop climate change using current technology.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to a point now where we are closing in on a place where if we don't start doing geoengineering, we're going to be in trouble. But we're going to have to start doing geoengineering.
Well, it said here, do you remember the good old days when we had 12 years to save the planet?
Yeah.
And Prince Charles turns around with a quote, I am firmly of the view that the next 18 months will decide our ability to keep climate change to survivable levels and to restore nature to the equilibrium we need for our survival.
Right. And what I'm saying is I don't think we can, I think we're getting to a point where we're going to have to start thinking about geoengineering.
Well, that's what this article basically is telling us.
Yeah, but here there's an important but here, and that is people have to understand that geoengineering does not necessarily mean dumping sulfur trioxide into the atmosphere to shield us from the sun.
There are other ways. Like
There are
planting
other
trees.
ways. Sulfur trioxide, by the way, reacts with water to make sulfuric acid, so we'd have
Acid
bad
rain.
acid rain. But there are other ways to do things, and we have been talking about one of them. Plant hemp all over the place. Planting hemp all over the place, or trees, 1.5 trillion trees.
There are probably other plants.
Yeah, there are a lot of plants that could do this. We were talking about mangrove, last week.
Yeah, absolutely.
You plant these things all over the place, you're going to change the entire environment for the earth.
Yep.
That's going to
Cheaply.
that's going to require a lot of wisdom.
Well, let's hope wisdom takes
Yeah.
precedence over
Well,
profits.
what we need in politics today is a combination of two things.
Okay.
One is wisdom, and the other is integrity.
Yep, you're right on both counts.
Okay, and me, I'm fairly conservative. I don't have a problem with Bernie Sanders calling himself a socialist.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a problem because I don't think socialism is a threat.
Well, socialism doesn't necessarily mean the government runs everything.
And also, the people who are complaining about socialism, when you say to them, Benjamin Franklin advocated a federal post office, they say, well, he was a socialist. I've had that happen.
I hear you. I've seen it in writing.
The Commons, the Boston Commons, where did that come from? It came from the Commons that was all through every town.
Every town had a commons.
And they had a Commons. During the Middle Ages, it was the Commons.
Yeah.
What's going on here? This is socialist? No, it's not socialist. It's not certainly nothing that came out of Marx or
Well,
Engels.
big business has had how would you say it, a slogan is privatize the profits and socialize the costs.
That's right. Okay.
So we're moving along here.
Yeah, we've got an item from Inside Climate News.
Ohio governor signs nuclear and coal bailout at the expense of renewable energy. I think we talked about this already.
We did, and he signed it. I didn't expect it
It
to
hadn't
come
been
up.
signed when we talked about it.
Well, it hadn't passed the House yet, and it wasn't expected to until August. But here, the Ohio legislature passed a measure that cuts renewable energy and energy efficiency programs, which they're doing because we shouldn't be picking winners and losers. And
Well,
adding
this is
subsidies.
politics. This is all politics.
Yeah, adding subsidies for nuclear and coal-fired power plants, which we have to do because they're going to be losers and they're our buddies. We are picking winners and losers here.
Well, it's going to be hitting the people, so this isn't going away.
Ohio's
Households
governor
will- I'll let you say it.
Mike DeWine signed this bill into law within hours of the time the House passed it.
Well, households are going to pay up to $1.50 a month to help these coal plants to keep running, and 85 cents a month to support the nuclear plants. They're not going to like that.
It's a tiny amount of money. It's the cost of an ice cream cone. It's not even. Why would people care? Well, they don't want coal. They don't want to breathe the exhaust from the coal plants. They don't want nuclear plants, and they don't need them because they can get renewable energy, and it's a whole lot cheaper.
As
How
we
are
have
these-
already spoke
How are
today.
these plants going to be in competition with the prices they're getting in Los Angeles?
You're
Okay,
right.
solar power costs more in Ohio than it does in Los Angeles, but not that much
that
more.
much more, right.
They're not going to be paying $1.50 or $2 or $2.50 because the alternative that they would be getting would drive the prices of power down.
Well, we've
makes
talked
me
about
mad.
the cost of coal, and it's a zombie.
Right. One last article
The
from
last
Renew,
one we got
Renew
coming up.
Economy, and there is a picture
Nice
of a
picture there.
floating array.
I don't think that's a real picture.
I don't know whether it is or not.
Well, because
But-
this is big.
Yeah,
this is big.
this is big.
South Korea unveils plans for a 2.1 gigawatt floating solar power plant.
South Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy announced that it will develop a 2.1 gigawatt floating solar power plant, which, upon completion, will be 14 times as big as the world's current largest floating project. The plant will be built in 2 stages, completed in 2022 and 2025. This just is more of this pattern of South Australia, North Australia, Northern Territories.
This
You know,
is Korea now.
This is Korea.
Yeah.
It's happening. The world is changing, and these projects are getting huge.
Well, let me give you an idea how huge this is.
Yeah, go ahead.
It will cover 12 square miles. It's expected to
Put it
require
on land.
it's expected to require more than 5 million solar power panels.
There you go.
Okay, it will produce enough electricity for 1 million households,
1 million households.
and work will start in the latter half of 2020.
Tom, we're out of time.
Well, there's a final takeaway
Okay,
here to
go
that
for your
question.
part.
The
Go for it.
ministry claims that this project will require 1.6 million construction workers. I think that's
Do
a
you suppose-
mistranslation.
Huh?
1.6 million workers. I don't think there are that many available in Korea.
Oh, I don't know. They could import them from the United States.
I think it's a mistranslation.
I don't know.
It's going to
Anyway,
take a lot of people, but it
it's
ain't going
gonna
to take
take a lot of
1.6 million.
Certainly not going to bring people
More than
from
twice
Northern
twice
Territories.
the number of people that are in Vermont.
Everybody, it's time to say goodbye.
I think it is.
So we'll say
Let's
goodbye.
say goodbye.
Have a dandy week.